Chosen one. Listen closely. The pain that tried to end you was never the finale. It was the furnace that shaped your strength. What the enemy meant for your destruction became the very soil where your authority was born. You've walked through seasons that looked like endings, silent prayers, unanswered calls, nights that felt like exile. Yet, in every tear that fell, something sacred was forming. You thought you were being punished, but heaven was preparing you. The breaking didn't break you. It revealed the steel within your soul. There's a kind of silence that isn't absence, it's incubation. You lived in that silence. People misunderstood your stillness, called it failure, called it weakness. But deep inside, your spirit was learning the language of heaven. You were being rewired for power that could not be imitated, trained for a kind of authority that only pain can teach. I once knew a chosen one who lost everything in a single year: their job, their family, their peace. The world said it was over. Yet in that valley, they found a hidden altar. They prayed not for escape, but for understanding. And slowly, heaven whispered, you were never being buried, you were being planted. Seasons changed, and what looked like death became bloom. The same soil that covered them became the ground from which purpose rose. You've been through something similar, haven't you? You've questioned why the storm never stopped, why the fire never cooled. But what if it was all divine strategy, a holy setup to introduce you to the version of yourself that only the storm could reveal? You are not broken beyond repair, you are reborn beyond recognition. Authority isn't given in comfort, it's forged in the tension between surrender and survival. You know what that feels like, holding on to faith when everything screamed, let go. You learned how to stand when your knees shook. You discovered how to trust when nothing made sense. That's what gives you weight in the spirit now. You no longer speak as someone hoping. You speak as someone who knows. Your prayers carry power because they were born in warfare. Your words cut through darkness because you've walked through it. The world sees your calm, heaven sees your crown. You are like iron pulled from the forge, glowing, resilient, untouchable. The fire didn't just test you, it authenticated you. When the enemy thought you were finished, heaven said, now they are ready. Amen. It is written in the book of Micah, chapter 7, verse 8, do not rejoice over me, my enemy. Though I have fallen, I will rise. Let that settle in your heart. You didn't walk through the storm alone. He knew your name in the fire. He shielded you, even when you felt exposed. You thought you were forgotten, but you were being observed by heaven, not as a victim, but as a vessel. Now, when you walk into a room, peace follows you. When you speak, the atmosphere shifts. You don't need validation anymore. You carry verification. The valley you survived has become your credential. You are a living prophecy, a reminder that endurance births authority. And so, as you stand on the edge of this new dawn, don't rush the rising. Let gratitude be your first language. Lift your eyes. Your authority is not loud, it's steady. You've earned it in silence, and heaven recognizes it in full. If this word speaks to your spirit, type 777 inches, the comments, a symbol of divine completion, of things coming full circle. Then, like, share, and subscribe, not out of habit, but as a declaration that you choose to rise, that you agree your breaking has built your authority. The battle tried to destroy you, but now the same battle bows to your strength. But hear this, your story is not just survival, it's strategy. Heaven used every shattered piece to build a foundation that cannot be shaken. The cracks that once embarrassed you now release the fragrance of wisdom. You no longer need to explain yourself. Your endurance has already spoken. The ones who doubted you will soon recognize that divine authority rests on your life, not because of what you've gained, but because of what you refuse to lose. So stand tall. The season that once crushed you has now crowned you. You walk differently, speak differently, move differently, because you carry evidence that God's hand was on you all along. The pain didn't end you, it commissioned you. The breaking gave you your voice back, sharper, clearer, unafraid. Remember this, storms are not sent to drown the chosen, they're sent to reveal what floats. You are that proof. Rise, not as the wounded, but as the warrior refined by holy fire. Your authority has been built. Now, walk in it. You were never ordinary. Long before you faced opposition, heaven had already marked you. You felt it as a child, that quiet awareness that you were different, that your heart responded to things others overlooked. You didn't crave the crowd, you craved meaning. You didn't fit in because you were never designed to blend in. The divine mark on your life made you visible in the spirit before it ever showed in the natural. That's why warfare found you early. The enemy recognized potential before you did. He saw the blueprint of destiny woven into your being and decided to launch the attack before you could grow into it. You mistook early rejection for failure, but it was a signal confirmation that something about you disturbed darkness. There were moments when you looked at others who seemed carefree, untouched by battles. You wondered why your path felt heavier. It's because heaven assigned you to carry more. The greater the weight of calling, the deeper the roots of preparation. You were not walking a delayed path, you were walking a different one. I remember a story of a young man who carried this same divine difference. He was gifted, but unnoticed, faithful, yet overlooked. While others ran ahead, he was left behind, tending to what looked insignificant. Yet, in that quiet field, he learned how to listen. He learned stillness before command. Years later, when destiny called his name, he moved with an authority no one could explain. His hidden season wasn't punishment, it was practice. Chosen one. That's you. You have been trained in hidden places. You've learned how to hold your peace while being misunderstood, how to forgive when falsely accused, how to serve while unseen. Those are not small lessons, they are sacred credentials. Heaven was teaching you spiritual discipline, molding your reflexes for battles you haven't even faced yet. When you questioned your worth, heaven was measuring your readiness. When people called you too intense, heaven called you focused. When doors shut, heaven whispered, "Not this one, not yet." You were being preserved, not rejected. Some rooms were too small for your destiny to fit in. Every chosen one must walk through this paradox, gifted yet hidden, anointed yet isolated. It is the way heaven protects its investment. Diamonds are not displayed while still being cut. Neither are warriors released while still being trained. Your isolation was never absence, it was insulation. You were being protected from premature exposure. Now, you begin to understand why you couldn't compromise, why shortcuts never satisfied you, It wasn't pride, it was prophecy. The anointing on your life made ordinary living impossible. You were never meant to be common. Even your pain carries revelation. Even your silence speaks truth. There's a beauty in divine separation. It's the kind that strips away imitation until only authenticity remains. While others chase recognition, you've learned to chase obedience. While others seek applause, you've learned to seek alignment. That's authority, the kind born from intimacy, not popularity. Scripture declares in the writings of Haggai, chapter 2, verse 9, "The glory of this present house will be greater than the glory of the former." These words echo over your life right now. Everything that once felt delayed will return, magnified. Every hidden year will bear multiplied fruit. You will see why you had to be set apart, because what God is building through you requires foundations that ordinary hearts could never carry. You have walked through the classroom of divine patience. Now, every step forward carries the weight of someone who knows process. You no longer rush what heaven is perfecting. You understand that purpose blooms in its appointed time, and you have learned to wait with grace. You are not behind. You are being unveiled at the pace of divine timing. When the moment comes, and it will, you won't have to force it. The doors will open because they recognize your name. The assignment will unfold because it has been waiting for your maturity to meet its moment. So breathe. You are not late. You are right on time, in heaven's calendar. What you once saw as delay was actually divine choreography, heaven aligning every piece of your story for revelation. The light will find you when your oil is ready. And when it does, you will step forward, not as one who stumbled into favor, but as one who was sculpted for it. You will carry peace where you once carried pain, wisdom where you once carried questions. The world will call it sudden. Heaven will call it scheduled. There comes a moment when every chosen one realizes that the attacks were never random. The enemy's assignment against you was calculated, designed with precision to strike at your confidence, your identity, your voice. It was personal, because your purpose is personal. Darkness only wages war where light threatens to rise. You wondered why you were hit so early, so hard, and so often. Why did people you loved turn against you? Why did doors close right when you started believing again? It's because the enemy saw something you didn't, the authority that sleeps in your spirit. He tried to break the vessel before the oil could flow. There's a pattern in the unseen realm. The greater the destiny, the earlier the warfare. Look back, even in childhood. You faced rejection that cut deeper than most could bear. But now you can see it, can't you? It wasn't rejection, it was recognition. Hell could see the mark of heaven on you and panicked. Every rumor, every betrayal, every disappointment was a rehearsal for rulership. You were being refined to carry divine authority without arrogance. The enemy hoped the attacks would make you bitter, but they made you bold. He hoped you would run, but you learned to stand. There was a young woman who carried a gentle heart and a fierce spirit. She loved deeply, trusted quickly, and forgave easily. But the more she gave, the more she lost. One day, she asked God, "Why does kindness feel like punishment?" Heaven's answer came quietly, "Because you are learning to love without losing yourself." That lesson transformed her wounds into wisdom. The very empathy that once left her vulnerable became her spiritual weapon. She began speaking words that healed others, and the same people who mocked her once now came to her for prayer. That's what happens when divine authority matures. You no longer fight from pain, you fight from perspective. The enemy loses access when you understand the assignment behind the affliction. You stop asking, "Why me?" and start declaring, "Through me." And Scripture declares in the writings of Isaiah, chapter 54, verse 17, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue that rises against you in judgment you shall condemn." And read that slowly. It doesn't say weapons won't form, it says they won't win. You've seen them form: gossip, betrayal, doubt, fatigue, but none of them had the final word. Heaven did. Your survival is proof that divine protection isn't about avoidance, it's about endurance. You were hit, but not held, wounded, but not wasted, broken, but rebuilt stronger, chosen one. You have to understand, the enemy's obsession with you is evidence of your impact. You've been targeted not because you're weak, but because you're effective. Every time you rise, hell trembles. Every time you forgive, chains break. Every time you choose peace over revenge, heaven advances. And now, you're stepping into a new phase of awareness. You no longer see the attacks as chaos, you see them as confirmation. You begin to smile in the face of pressure because you've realized something. What tried to break you only revealed what can't be broken. Your heart, though scarred, is still soft. Your faith, though tested, is still alive. That's the miracle of divine endurance. You emerge without bitterness, carrying the fragrance of grace instead of the residue of pain. And now I'll ask you if this resonates deep within your spirit. Comment, "Still standing." And because that's what you are, still standing, still chosen, still anointed. Your comment isn't for vanity, it's a declaration to the unseen that you refuse to fall back into fear. It's your statement of authority that what once crushed you has now crowned you. The attacks didn't define you. They trained you. They introduced you to your voice, your armor, your authority. And though hell aimed to silence you, heaven has already amplified your name. You're not merely surviving the storm anymore, you've learned how to command it. You carry proof that faith is not fragile. It bends, it bleeds, but it never breaks. Every scar now shines as evidence that divine strength was always flowing through you. The enemy underestimated the resilience of a soul anchored in truth. What once looked like defeat has become divine documentation, a record that you were tested, refined, and still chosen for glory. When you walk now, heaven recognizes your authority. The air around you shifts. Peace follows. You no longer chase validation because purpose itself walks beside you as your silent companion. So remember this, authority is never granted easily. It's earned in hidden battles. You have fought, endured, and conquered. That's why you now stand unshaken, crowned by perseverance. Even in your lowest valley, when everything seemed lost, the hidden hand of God was moving. You couldn't see it then. The silence felt like abandonment, the delays like rejection, but heaven was quietly building something unshakable within you. What looked like loss was the shaping of foundation. What felt like emptiness was preparation for abundance. God's hand doesn't always announce itself with thunder or miracles. Sometimes it hides in ordinary moments. The stranger's kind word, the inner strength that comes from nowhere, the peace that arrives when logic fails. You called it coincidence, but heaven called it strategy. Divine fingerprints were on everything, even the heartbreak, even the disappointment when the doors closed. You thought you were being denied, but the truth is, some doors were sealed to preserve your destiny. Not everyone could walk with you where you were headed. The pruning wasn't cruelty, it was calibration. You were being tuned to heaven's frequency. There was a man who once prayed for success, only to lose everything. Days later, his position, his friends, his sense of control. He thought God had forgotten him. Yet, in that dark season, something unexpected happened. He found a peace that didn't depend on outcomes. He learned that God's presence is not proven by open doors, but by sustained peace in closed rooms. Years later, when restoration came, he realized he'd been promoted internally long before it showed externally. That's the kind of wisdom you're walking into now. The hidden hand of God doesn't build comfort, it builds capacity. It stretches, reshapes, refines. It dismantles false strength so true power can emerge. You didn't lose time, you gained depth. The Spirit of God testifies through the book of Romans, chapter 8, verse 28. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose. Oh, read that again. Slowly. All things. Not some. Not most all. The heartbreaks. The detours. The waiting seasons. The misunderstood chapters, all were woven into the pattern of good. Nothing was wasted. Even your tears carried divine data. Heaven collected them as seeds for tomorrow's joy. There's a holy irony in divine timing. When you thought nothing was happening, everything was being aligned. Heaven is not late, it's deliberate. It waits until your heart is matured enough to carry the promise without pride. That's why the blessing had to wait. If it came sooner, it would have crushed you. Now, it will crown you. Every hidden season was a construction site. You were under divine architecture. God was reinforcing your foundation so your authority could stand in any storm. You didn't just gain faith, you gained structure, the kind that holds when everything else falls apart. When you prayed and nothing changed, heaven was changing you. It was purifying your motives, teaching you discernment, teaching you to depend on unseen strength rather than visible results. That transformation became your armor, invisible to the world, undeniable to the spirit. Now you see every delay carried divine detail. Every detour protected you from disaster. You didn't miss opportunities. You missed traps disguised as opportunities. Heaven's no was never rejection. It was redirection. The hidden hand of God never stopped working. Even in your silence, while you cried, He calculated. While you questioned, He coordinated. You were being written into a story too grand to understand from the middle. When people walked away, you thought you were losing support. But heaven was teaching you to stand with angels before standing with crowds. Solitude wasn't punishment. It was rehearsal for spiritual authority. You learned to hear the whisper of God without the noise of approval. And now, you walk differently. Not with arrogance, but with quiet confidence. You've seen too much of God's faithfulness to doubt His methods now. You no longer need to understand everything to trust that He's working. The breaking, the silence, the pruning, they were all evidence of divine involvement. You were never abandoned. You were being adjusted. Look at you now, carrying peace that can't be stolen, walking with clarity that confusion can't distort. You are the product of unseen miracles. The hidden hand of God was never absent. It was simply invisible until the right light revealed it. And now, as that light rises, everything begins to make sense, not because it's easy, but because it's divine. Every unanswered prayer was a seed planted in unseen soil. It did not disappear. It grew in silence until timing and grace collided. Now, harvest begins to whisper your name. The same hand that hid you is the hand now revealing you. What once seemed delay has become design. Heaven unveils you only when you're ready to reign. Every rejection you faced carried a secret message. You are being redirected. You didn't know it then, but every time the door slammed shut, heaven was steering you away from something that would have drained your strength. Rejection was never about your worth. It was divine redirection toward your assignment. It hurts when people walk away, doesn't it? When they misunderstand your heart, mislabel your intentions, or treat your silence as weakness. You replayed the moments, trying to figure out what went wrong. But what if nothing went wrong? What if their exit was an answered prayer you didn't know you prayed? There was once a chosen one who kept trying to fit into circles that couldn't hold his growth. Every time he got close, the connection fell apart. He thought he was cursed with loneliness. Yet years later, when his purpose bloomed, he realized those rejections were heaven's fingerprints. They didn't leave him, they released him. When God redirects, He doesn't shout. He closes doors gently. So gently that at first it feels like failure. But over time, you begin to see the pattern. The people who left made room for peace. The jobs you lost made space for vision. The endings became entrances. The ancient record in the book of Proverbs, chapter 3, verse 5 to 6, reminds us, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your paths straight." That's the heart of it. Trust, not blind faith. But deep surrender. The kind that says, even if I don't understand, I'll keep walking. Because every divine redirection carries hidden purpose. Some of the most painful endings are actually heaven's kindest protection. You are like a ship guided through fog. You can't see the full route. But the lighthouse of grace never stops shining. Every wave that once terrified you was teaching you balance. Every storm was teaching you to listen for the sound of His voice amid chaos. And now, looking back, can you see it? The pattern of mercy woven through disappointment. Every rejection removed a counterfeit connection. Every detour rerouted you toward destiny. You thought you were being pushed away. You were actually being pulled closer to purpose. So let your heart release resentment. Let peace settle where pain used to live. The same God who closed the door will open another one that fits your hands perfectly. You won't have to force it, beg for it, or chase it. It will align naturally, because it was designed for you. Your story is a mosaic of divine redirection. Every piece, even the shattered ones, forms something beautiful when seen from above. And as this message flows into your heart, I want to speak from mine. If this voice, these words, this space has ever lifted your spirit, or reminded you of your purpose. I want you to know something. Your presence here already matters deeply. If you feel led, only if your heart whispers yes, you can help keep this light burning. Think of it like tending a lamp in the night. Every small act, every like, every share, every subscription, every seed you choose to sow becomes oil poured into the flame. It keeps the glow alive for someone still searching in the dark. When you subscribe, it's like saying, "Keep the lamp on, I'll walk with this light." Oh, when you share, it's as if you're passing a torch to another traveler lost on the road. And when you donate, you're placing fresh oil into the lantern, not out of duty, but love, so it can shine farther, warmer, longer. There is no demand here, only invitation. You are never obligated to give, but if your spirit feels that soft pull, follow it. Because in the kingdom, generosity is not transaction, it's transformation. And if you cannot give in material ways, your prayers, your encouragement, even your silent amen are waves that carry this light further. Together, we're building a sanctuary of words, a hearth where weary hearts can find warmth again. So as we move forward, let gratitude guide us. For every rejection turned redirection. For every storm turned testimony. For every heart that chooses to keep believing, even after breaking. You're not lost. You're being led. You're not forgotten. You're being formed. And one day, you'll look back and whisper, "Now I see why that door had to close." Learn, like, share, and subscribe if this message has breathed peace into your night. And if your heart feels moved to donate, do it with joy, as if you're adding another flame to this shared fire of faith. Because every spark keeps the world a little warmer. There was a night when you almost gave up, not because you lacked faith, but because you were tired of fighting alone. The prayers felt unanswered, the silence too long, and the pain too familiar. You told yourself you'd be strong, but strength started to feel like a burden. Still, something inside you refused to quit. That was not your willpower, that was heaven holding you when your hands could no longer hold themselves. You thought that night was your breaking point, but it was actually your turning point. In the dark, when no one was watching, endurance was being written into your spirit. You didn't realize it, but heaven was watching, not judging your weakness, but recording your persistence. There's a holy kind of strength that is born only in the moments when everything screams, "Let go." It's not the strength of striving, but the strength of staying. You stayed. You showed up again. You prayed again. You loved again. That's how authority begins, not through power, but through perseverance. I remember a chosen one named Daniel, not the prophet, but a man who faced the furnace of life in his own way. He worked quietly, cared deeply, but nothing seemed to move forward. One night, he told God, "I'm done," and heaven whispered, "Then let me carry what you can't." That night didn't end his struggle, but it changed his stance. He learned to fight from rest, not resistance. Months later, doors began to open, not because his effort increased, but because his surrender deepened. That's the paradox of divine strength. It's found when you finally stop fighting against what God is using to refine you. You were never meant to survive by your own force. You were meant to be sustained by grace. The prophet once proclaimed in the book of Habakkuk, chapter 3, verse 19, The sovereign Lord is my strength. He makes my feet like the feet of a deer. He enables me to tread on the heights. When those words describe you perfectly now. You are not standing because life got easier. You are standing because grace grew stronger. What once terrified you now teaches you. The storms that used to shake you now bow to your calm. Every chosen one faces a night when they must decide. Keep fighting in their own strength or rest in divine endurance. You chose the latter. That's why you're still here. That's why, even in exhaustion, there's peace. You learned the art of leaning into faith when fear whispers, leaning into God when logic fails. You may not see it, but that night you almost gave up was the moment your authority was forged. The heavens remember it. Angels stood guard as you chose faith over finality. You didn't realize it, but your surrender became your sword. Now you walk differently. There's quiet confidence in your eyes, a stillness in your spirit. You don't need to prove that you're strong. Your survival already speaks for you. You are no longer trying to outrun pain. You are outlasting it. And perhaps someone hearing this right now is at that same edge, tired, unseen, ready to give up. Let this truth anchor you. You are not losing. You are lasting. What feels like breaking is actually the birth of authority. Type 555 inches, the comments, if your spirit knows this moment, the moment when weakness met grace and grace refused to let go. It's not just a number. It's a declaration that you're still standing, still breathing, still becoming. Because this is not coincidence, this is divine timing. You're hearing this because heaven wanted to remind you, endurance is holy. Every tear was counted, every sigh was sacred. And though you almost gave up, you didn't, and that changed everything. You've discovered that faith is not about avoiding the fire, but walking through it without losing your song. The night you almost quit became the night you were crowned with unseen strength. So stand tall. Chosen one. The breaking didn't destroy you. It revealed the power that can't be broken. You now carry an authority that silence taught you, the kind that doesn't need applause to feel alive. Every quiet battle became language for those still searching for courage. You are their living example. When others see your calm, they won't know it was bought with tears. They won't see the nights you whispered prayers through trembling lips. But heaven saw and heaven remembered. That's why peace follows you now. So when new storms rise, you won't panic. You'll recognize them as familiar teachers. You'll smile, knowing the outcome is already written. Because endurance isn't just what kept you alive, it's what transformed you into someone unstoppable. There is a rare kind of power born from pain, not the pain that destroys, but the pain that distills. It's the kind that purifies motives, burns away pretense, and leaves behind only what is real. That's what has been happening inside you. The tears that once seemed wasted became oil. The sorrow that once silenced you became your anointing. You didn't realize it. But every night you spent wrestling with God, every hour you spent trying to make sense of unanswered prayers, was a sacred exchange. Heaven was trading your frustration for fortitude. You were being given the anointing of endurance, the invisible oil that empowers you to keep going when others stop. Some people mistake endurance for stubbornness, but the two are not the same. Stubbornness resists change. Endurance transforms through it. You have not just endured difficulty, you've evolved through it. What once would have broken you now refines you. You no longer run from pressure. You understand that diamonds are made beneath it. There was once a woman named Leah who carried this same anointing. She was overlooked, unwanted, and often compared to someone else. Yet every time she felt invisible, she turned her heart toward heaven. With each heartbreak, she birthed something greater. By the time her story ended, she had carried the lineage of promise. Her pain became the portal through which blessing entered the world. That's what happens when endurance meets faith. What hurt you becomes holy. Your patience becomes prophecy. You begin to see how every season, even the silent ones, built strength in you that cannot be imitated. The Spirit of God testifies through the book of James, chapter 1, verse 12. Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because, having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life. Then, that's your portion now, not just survival, but a crown. You may not see it, but the heavens already recognize it. Every time you chose forgiveness over resentment, you were being crowned. Every time you chose to keep believing instead of turning bitter, you were being crowned. Endurance is more than patience. It's prophetic stability. It's the spiritual backbone of authority. You've learned that consistency is more powerful than charisma. It's what keeps you grounded when everything else shakes. There's a rhythm to divine endurance, a quiet pulse beneath the noise of life. You found it in the stillness after chaos, in the peace after panic. You know now that not every victory is loud. Some are silent, unseen, recorded only in heaven's archives. The oil of endurance flows where faith has been tested. You can't fake it. You can only become it. And you, chosen one, have become it. That's why when you speak, people listen differently. They don't just hear words. They feel the weight of someone who's walked through fire and didn't lose the fragrance of grace. There were moments when you wanted quick answers. Instant miracle. Visible progress. But heaven was training you in a slower rhythm, one that teaches patience without frustration. Because, in the kingdom, speed never outruns substance. What lasts is what was built slowly. You've learned how to breathe even when buried in responsibility, how to smile even when strength feels thin. That's not denial, that's divine resilience. The world will call it optimism, but heaven calls it oil. The anointing of endurance doesn't make life easier, it makes you unshakable. It steadies your steps when the path feels uncertain. It guards your heart when the noise gets loud. And it keeps you anchored to the truth that no moment of suffering is wasted in God's economy. Sometimes the greatest miracle isn't the mountain moving, it's your ability to keep climbing when it doesn't. That's endurance. That's faith matured through friction. You now carry something unexplainable. When others crumble, you remain calm. When chaos rises, you stay rooted, not because you're immune to pain, but because you've learned how to turn it into power. So the next time tears visit, don't see them as weakness, see them as fresh oil being pressed from your spirit. Every drop carries the scent of survival, the fragrance of faith. You are not waiting to be anointed, you already are. Your endurance is the evidence. Your scars are the seal, and your peace, the proof. The oil didn't fall on you from the sky. It was pressed from within. The oil that flows from endurance carries memory of nights survived, of faith kept alive. It reminds you that strength is never stolen. It's cultivated. So, walk gently. Knowing your endurance has become your ministry. Every step you take leaves traces of resilience for others to follow toward hope. You are beginning to rise in something few truly understand spiritual authority. It's not the kind that demands recognition or seeks attention. It's quiet, weighty, and undeniable. It walks into a room without announcing itself, yet the atmosphere bends in reverence. That is the kind of power heaven gives only to those who have endured the crushing. You've learned that real authority cannot be taught. It must be lived. It's born through submission, not self-promotion. While others were chasing titles, you were learning trust. While some built platforms, you built prayer altars. And now, the fruit of that hidden obedience begins to show. Authority is not about commanding others, it's about mastering yourself. You've learned to command your emotions, to silence the urge, to react, to stand still when chaos rises. Each time you chose restraint over revenge, heaven added another layer to your spiritual weight. The calm you now carry is not passivity, it's power under control. There's a story about a young believer who once asked an old teacher, "How do I know when I carry true authority?" The teacher smiled and said, "When your words can calm storms inside others without raising your voice. That kind of authority only comes from having faced storms inside yourself first." That's you. You've learned the language of stillness. You've become fluent in peace. What used to trigger fear now triggers discernment. What used to make you retreat now makes you rise. You've stopped begging God to remove every challenge. You now ask Him to reveal the lesson in it. The divine message echoes from the book of Luke, chapter 10, verse 19. "I have given you authority to trample on snakes and scorpions and to overcome all the power of the enemy. Nothing will harm you." These words are not distant promises, they are active truth in your life. You no longer see yourself as a victim of warfare, but as a vessel of victory. You've discovered that authority is not the absence of attack, it's the ability to remain unmoved when attacked. Your spirit has matured into something immovable, like a mountain carved by wind and rain. You stand tall, not because you escaped the elements, but because you've learned to live within them. Every storm polished you. Every strike shaped you. Now, even the winds of doubt bow to your stillness. Spiritual authority does not make you louder, it makes you lighter. You carry peace as a weapon, forgiveness as a shield, and truth as your foundation. You don't fight for dominance, you stand in dominion. That is the difference between performance and power. Think of the eagle high above the storm. It doesn't flee from the wind, it uses it to rise higher. The same turbulence that terrifies smaller birds becomes the current that lifts it closer to the sun. That is how authority works. You no longer resist every challenge, you rise through them. People will start to sense something different about you. They won't be able to explain it, only feel it. Conversations with you will bring clarity. Your silence will carry weight. Your presence will bring stability in places filled with confusion. That's how heaven validates authority, not with applause, but with impact. But remember this, authority is stewardship, not ownership. It is not a crown to display, but a mantle to carry. You are entrusted with it, not entitled to it. Every day, heaven watches to see how gently you hold the power you've been given. The greater your authority, the softer your heart must remain, because the moment pride takes root, power loses purity. So guard your humility. It is the fragrance that keeps your oil fresh. Your authority is not for control, it's for covering. It's to protect the broken, to lift the weary, to speak light into dark spaces. That's what makes heaven trust you with more. And as you continue to grow in this silent strength, you'll realize that the true mark of maturity is peace, not applause, not recognition, not even results. Peace that flows from knowing you're exactly where you're meant to be. So keep walking gently, carrying this invisible crown with grace. Your authority was not built in a moment. It was forged in many unseen ones. You don't have to announce that you're chosen. The atmosphere already knows. Every time you choose compassion over pride, your authority deepens. Heaven measures power not by how loud you speak, but by how gently you heal those who tremble near you. So, walk in quiet confidence. The unseen realms already recognize your name. You are not trying to prove your strength. You are walking as living proof of it. There comes a moment when the storm you once feared begins to obey your voice. You no longer plead for peace, you proclaim it. You no longer beg for calm, you command it. This is what happens when authority matures. The winds recognize your tone. You remember when storms used to shake you to your core. You'd question if God still heard you. But something changed. Somewhere between the cries and the silences, you stopped asking for rescue and started walking in revelation. You realized that the same spirit that calms seas lives in you. Now, when darkness approaches, you don't panic. You pose. You listen. You speak. Your words are not noise, they are assignments. They carry the weight of one who has walked through storms and survived their roar. You know now that peace is not the absence of battle, it's mastery within it. The eternal voice speaks again in the book of Mark, chapter 4, verse 39. He got up, rebuked the wind, and said to the waves, "Quiet, be still." Then the wind died down, and it was completely calm. That verse isn't just history, it's heritage. The same power that silenced the sea in Galilee now moves through your breath. You are not merely enduring storms, you are instructing them. Every test that once terrified you has become territory you now rule over. There's a sacred confidence that comes from realizing you're no longer the one running for cover. You've become the calm in someone else's chaos. People will start coming to you, not because you're loud, but because peace follows you like a shadow. I once met a woman whose life was a series of tempests, financial collapse, betrayal, illness. For years, she asked God for deliverance. But one day, after yet another disappointment, she simply stood in her living room and said, "Peace, stay." She didn't even ask anymore. She declared it. From that day forward, her atmosphere changed. The same chaos that once controlled her lost its grip. The storm didn't vanish instantly, but it lost authority over her. That's where you are now. You've become the stillness you once searched for. The enemy's voice grows weaker because your awareness of truth grows stronger. You've learned that you don't need to outshout the storm, you just need to outlast it. And the beauty of it all, heaven has been training you for this very thing. Every season of confusion, every sleepless night, every delay, they weren't punishments. They were lessons in spiritual command. You were being taught to stand, to speak, to still. So when new waves rise, you don't crumble. You simply adjust your stance. You know the pattern now. Storms always break before destiny arrives. The shaking is not your end, it's your elevation. Type 333 inches. The comments: if this truth resonates in your spirit, not as a ritual, but as a declaration, I walk in calm authority. Your comment isn't about numbers, it's about alignment. It's an act of agreement that says, I no longer fear the waves. I am the calm they obey. And this authority you carry is gentle yet fierce. You don't need to perform power, you embody it. When you speak, Chaos recognizes lineage. It knows your name is written in heaven's registry of those who command peace. Now, storms no longer signal danger, they signal opportunity. They remind you that your words matter, that your faith shapes weather. The wind still blows, but it bends around you now. And though new battles will come, they will come trembling, because the one who once feared storms has become the storm breaker. You are not running from thunder anymore. You're walking with lightning in your veins. This is your mantle now, quiet authority, rooted faith, unshakable calm. You don't need to prove it. You simply are it. When you speak now, creation listens, not because of volume, but because of vibration, the frequency of faith that travels through your words like light through glass. That is divine resonance. The world around you begins to adjust. Atmospheres align with heaven's order wherever you step. That's the silent language of authority, not control, but correction born of love. So, remember this: storms aren't proof of weakness, they are stages for revelation. Each one exists to remind you who you are: not fragile, not forgotten, but forged in divine stillness. You are peace in motion. Every new dawn will test your calm, yet you'll meet it steady. The winds may rise again, but they now recognize the authority within your silence. Walk forward, knowing peace is not a feeling, it's your identity. Wherever you go, the storm surrenders, because the atmosphere remembers your command. Every scar you carry is a story heaven decided to leave visible, not as shame, but as signature. You've walked through battles that didn't just bruise your skin, they branded your spirit with wisdom. And now, those scars have become your credentials. They are heaven's handwriting across your life, saying, this one endured. This one can be trusted. The crown you wear today wasn't handed to you in comfort. It was forged in conflict. You didn't earn it through applause, but through persistence. It shines, not because it's perfect, but because it has been tested in fire. There's something sacred about scars. They speak a language only the healed can understand. They remind you of both pain and purpose, how every wound once whispered weakness, but now declares victory. They're proof that what tried to kill you has become part of your strength. A chosen one once said, I thought the battle broke me, but it actually introduced me to the version of myself God saw all along. That's what happens when the divine uses pain as preparation. You're not wearing defeat, you're wearing destiny. The scripture bears witness in the second book of Corinthians, chapter 4, verse 8 to 9. We are hard pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair, persecuted, but not abandoned, struck down, but not destroyed. Let that truth rest on you. You've been pressed, but not crushed, struck, but never stopped. Your survival is sacred evidence that heaven invests deeply in you, because the more you carry, the more you're trusted. Authority always comes at a cost. You can't borrow resilience, you must build it. You had to live through nights that forced you to wrestle with fear, through seasons that stripped away comfort until only truth remained. That's where the crown began, forming not on your head, but in your heart. You've learned that true leadership doesn't rise through power, but through pain redeemed. The throne isn't reached by climbing ladders, but by carrying crosses. Every scar on your journey became a jewel in your crown, and now that you wear it, you carry a responsibility to walk with humility, to speak with gentleness, to lead through love. Because crowns aren't meant for display, they're meant for service. You stand now as living evidence that endurance births elevation. But remember, crowns grow heavy when held alone. This message, these words exist to keep that fire alive. Not just in you, but in countless others walking their own unseen valleys. If this message has touched something deep in you, let your gratitude flow in whatever form feels right. Maybe you clicked like. It's like nodding to heaven, saying, "I recognize this truth." End quote. Maybe you share. It's as if you're handing someone else a lantern on a dark road, whispering, "You're not alone." End quote. Maybe you subscribe. That's you saying, "I want to keep walking in this light, step by step." End quote. And if your heart feels stirred to give, let it be a beautiful choice, never an obligation. Think of it as adding another flame to the fire that's warming others. A gentle, voluntary act, not payment, not pressure, just participation in something sacred. Your generosity, in whatever form it takes, is like rain on this field of faith. It helps new seeds grow messages of comfort, reminders of grace, words that reach those who've forgotten how to hope. You are part of this light's journey now. And the beauty of light is that it never diminishes by sharing. It multiplies. Every act of kindness, every small gesture, keeps the flame traveling farther than any one voice could reach. You've been crowned through conflict, but the crown isn't yours alone. It's for everyone who looks at your story and realizes, if they survived, so can I. So let your life continue to speak, not in noise, but in nurture. Let every scar remind you that God wastes nothing. What once brought you pain now carries power. And as this chapter closes, know this: you are walking proof that even in the fiercest battles, heaven's hands never leave the battlefield. Like, share, and subscribe if this message has stirred your faith or softened your heart. And if you feel led to donate, do it as a love offering, a seed of gratitude, not to give something away, but to help love find its next voice. Because light shared freely always returns, multiplied brighter, warmer, and alive in places we may never see. Every crown shines brighter when worn with humility. Let your victories whisper hope, not pride, so others see grace reflected, not gold displayed. Keep tending this fire of faith. Each act of giving, each quiet share, sends sparks into unseen hearts, keeping heaven's warmth alive in human hands. Hell is confused about you. The same traps that once caught you no longer hold you. The same attacks that used to shake you now pass through you like shadows through light. You've become something unrecognizable to the enemy, not because you changed your circumstances, but because you changed your stance. The confusion of darkness always begins when a chosen one realizes their authority. You no longer fight from fear, you fight from victory. You no longer ask for permission to exist in peace. You command it by simply being. That's why attacks have lost their impact. The enemy hasn't stopped trying. He's just realizing that his old methods no longer work. Every time you rise after being struck, hell loses another strategy. It's as if heaven rewrote your spiritual code. What once triggered collapse now activates courage. The battlefield hasn't disappeared, but the battle rhythm has shifted. You've learned to move differently, to respond with wisdom instead of reaction. The divine message echoes from the book of Psalm, chapter 30, verse 5. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. That's not just a comforting phrase, it's a prophetic timeline. Every night season has an expiration date. Darkness cannot negotiate against dawn. The enemy knows that once you've tasted morning, you'll never fear midnight again. And that's why confusion reigns in the camp of darkness. You're no longer predictable. You no longer spiral when disappointment hits. You've stopped letting pain become your prison. You now use it as a pulpit. I remember a young woman who used to fear confrontation, not physical, but spiritual. Every time opposition arose, she would retreat, shrinking back into silence. But one day, while praying in tears, she realized something powerful. I'm not here to run, I'm here to reign. From that day, her perspective changed. The same attacks came, but they only revealed her growth. She became untouchable, not because attacks stopped, but because fear did. That's what confusion looks like for the enemy. When what used to work no longer does, it sends rejection. But you respond with self-worth. It sends delay, but you answer with patience. It sends betrayal, but you bless in return. Every act of grace you choose becomes warfare he cannot decode. You've become a mystery to hell. You move with calm under pressure, smile through storms, worship through warfare. The enemy doesn't understand how you keep shining after being struck. That's because your power source isn't external, it's eternal. And though some may still misread your peace as weakness, heaven sees it as mastery. You've learned that stillness is not surrender, it's strategy. You've learned that silence is not absence, it's awareness. Every time you refuse to react, you're forcing darkness to exhaust itself. Spiritual maturity looks like peace that doesn't panic. You no longer chase validation, because you've already been verified in the secret place. The opinions of others don't dictate your worth anymore. You've stepped out of survival mode and into dominion. When the enemy looks for you where you used to be, in fear, in doubt, in self-blame, he finds only absence. You've moved dimensions. You've ascended beyond his reach. The confusion of hell isn't just about your resilience, it's about your revelation. You've learned who you are. You've realized that opposition is confirmation. You now see trials as training, setbacks as signals, and warfare as witness. That awareness makes you untouchable. This is what divine reversal feels like when your scars become sermons, when your pain becomes prophecy, when your endurance becomes echo. The enemy thought you'd be silent, but now your life preaches louder than your words ever could. So walk on, steady and sure. You are no longer reacting to darkness, you are revealing light. You've turned from target to testimony, from victim to vessel. The confusion of hell is the celebration of heaven. Every failure the enemy planned became a frame for your faith. Every tear he caused became a river of oil. Every time he thought he won, you came out stronger, wiser, freer. And now, when you breathe, peace follows. When you move, grace flows. You are no longer in the war for survival. You are walking in the rhythm of victory. Let the enemy stay confused. You were never meant to explain your glow, only to carry it. You've outgrown the language of fear. What once sounded like threat now sounds like background noise to your peace. That silence terrifies the enemy more than shouting ever could. Keep walking in quiet authority. The enemy can't track what moves in grace. You've become invisible to chaos, seen only by heaven, covered completely by purpose. You've walked through enough shadows to recognize when light begins to move again. This moment, the one you are living right now, is not ordinary. It is heaven's endorsement, a divine unveiling. You've been refined privately, and now God begins to make public what he has been perfecting in secret. There's a shift that happens when heaven decides the time has come. The waiting ends, the wilderness lifts, and everything that once resisted you begins to cooperate. It's not coincidence, it's timing. You are stepping into the phase where heaven affirms what the fire has already approved. The sacred word declares in the book of Hosea, chapter 6, verse 1, "Come, let us return to the Lord. He has torn us to pieces, but he will heal us. He has injured us, but he will bind up our wounds." End quote. That is the pattern of divine endorsement, wounding before wisdom, breaking before building. You were torn so truth could enter. You were wounded so healing could flow through you. Now, as you rise, you are not just healed. You are a healer. The same hands that trembled in pain now carry power. Heaven's endorsement isn't about popularity or applause. It's about purity. It's when God places his weight behind your words. People will feel peace around you and not know why. It's because your spirit has been through divine refinement. The oil of authenticity rests on you. You've been trusted with it because you proved faithful in silence. When heaven endorses someone, nothing can discredit them. You don't need to defend your name. God himself becomes your advocate. You no longer chase opportunities, they begin to find you. The light of favor recognizes the fragrance of obedience. I once met a man who spent years in obscurity, faithful, patient, often forgotten. He didn't understand why he remained unseen while others advanced. But one day, without announcement, everything changed. Invitation came. Doors opened. Voices that once ignored him began to call his name. Nothing in him had changed except one thing. His heart had matured enough to handle recognition. Heaven endorsed him when his character caught up with his calling. That's where you are now. You're not striving, you're standing. You don't need to chase visibility. Visibility will chase your authenticity. The favor you carry isn't a spotlight, it's a sunrise. It grows gradually, gently, and nothing can stop it. When heaven endorses you, even your silence speaks. The same people who questioned your process will one day witness your purpose, and your rise will not humiliate them. It will humble them, because your elevation carries mercy, not malice. So don't rush this unveiling. Let it happen as heaven wills. Endorsement without preparation becomes exposure. But you've been prepared, shaped in quiet seasons, strengthened in hidden battles, matured in unseen moments. Now, your emergence will not just impress, it will impact. When favor begins to rest on you, Stay small in your heart. Remember, promotion is not possession, it's permission. You've been granted access to carry influence for healing, not hierarchy. The weight of favor should make you gentler, not greater. Type 888 inches, the comments. If this resonates not as a superstition, but as a symbol of divine completion and new beginnings, your comment isn't just interaction, it's agreement. It's your quiet yes to what heaven is already doing. Because this is your moment, the turning of tides, the lifting of seasons, the unveiling of purpose. Every tear, every delay, every loss has been woven into this unveiling. You're not entering a random breakthrough. You're stepping into what's been reserved for you since the beginning. Heaven's endorsement will not shout. It will whisper. You'll notice it in subtle confirmations, unexpected peace, divine alignment, effortless progress. What once took striving will now flow. And when people ask, "How did you get here?" you'll simply smile and say, "Grace carried me." And because grace did, and now, heaven stamps its approval across your life. Heaven's endorsement isn't a trumpet blast, it's a quiet shift. Suddenly, what resisted you begins to yield. Doors that once mocked your knock now open without struggle. That's not luck, that's alignment. This is the fruit of patience, the reward of obedience. God doesn't skip steps, He perfects them. You waited, you trusted, and now timing bows to your faith. Every delay just built depth for the promise to stand. So walk softly into this new light. Don't rush to prove what heaven has already proven. Let humility remain your fragrance and gratitude your language. The world will see the glow, but only heaven knows the cost behind it. You've reached the point where walking in supernatural authority feels natural, not as an event, but as an essence. You don't have to force it, chase it, or announce it. It flows from you like breath, quiet but powerful, invisible yet undeniable. What you once prayed to carry has become who you are. Authority in the Spirit doesn't look like dominance, it looks like peace. It's not about being the loudest in the room, but about being the calmest. You no longer wrestle to prove your worth. You move with the assurance that you are already appointed, already equipped, already backed by heaven. Every step you take now carries a ripple. Even the way you enter spaces changes atmospheres. You walk in carrying unseen light. You leave traces of peace behind. That's what happens when obedience and confidence meet. The supernatural becomes the standard. According to the holy writings found in the book of Romans, chapter 8, verse 37, "In all these things we are more than conquerors through Him who loved us." And this is not poetic comfort, it's positional truth. You are not trying to win, you are walking from victory already secured. The battles you face now are not to prove your power, but to exercise it. When you speak, you don't speak from emotion, you speak from authority. And that authority comes from alignment. The power flows not because of who you are in yourself, but because of who you are in Him. You've become a living extension of divine will, grounded, graceful, guided. There's a story of an old soldier who carried no weapon, yet wherever he went, peace followed. People said he had the calm of heaven in his eyes. When asked how he obtained it, he replied, "I stopped fighting battles. I wasn't called to fight." That's what you've learned too. Not every disturbance deserves your energy. Not every challenge is a calling. Authority discerns. You've begun to understand that true power isn't reactive, it's responsive. You no longer waste your words on proving your position. You speak when the Spirit moves. And when you do, your words strike like lightning, not from anger, but from accuracy. Supernatural authority doesn't make you proud, it makes you precise. You stop striving and start stewarding. You become intentional with peace, strategic with silence, and generous with love. People sense something different, something weighty, not because you've changed what you say, but because your words now come from a deeper well. And yet, with all this authority, your heart remains soft. That's how heaven knows it can trust you with more. Power in wrong hands destroys. Power in surrendered hands restores. You've proven trustworthy. That's why the flow continues. You no longer see interruptions as inconveniences. You see them as invitations. Every challenge becomes an opportunity to manifest what's within you. When confusion enters a room, you don't absorb it. You correct it by your very presence. That's authority. Quiet correction, born of consistency. Sometimes it will surprise even you. The moments when you speak peace over chaos, when you intercede for someone and see breakthrough happen, when you pray and feel heaven respond like thunder, those are glimpses of how deeply connected you've become. Still, you know, the secret authority flows through humility. You carry it lightly, knowing it was never yours to own, only yours to reflect. The moment you forget that, the flow falters, but you won't forget. You've walked through too much to mistake power for pride. Your journey has transformed you into a bridge between heaven's intention and earth's need. You are no longer asking for miracles. You are one. Your obedience creates openings where others find restoration. Your endurance has turned into intercession. Your very existence has become prayer in motion. Supernatural authority doesn't isolate, it integrates. You walk among people, but your eyes see beyond them. You recognize the unseen, sense the shift in seasons, hear the whispers others overlook. That's not strange, it's sacred sensitivity. It's how heaven communicates with those who carry responsibility. And yet, this life of spiritual authority remains simple at its core. You rise, you listen, you love, you obey. Each act of obedience keeps the oil flowing. Each quiet surrender keeps the flame alive. There is no striving left, only stillness that speaks. You don't have to declare who you are. Creation already knows. You've walked with storms, conversed with silence, endured refining fires, and emerged as one who walks with the rhythm of heaven. This is what it means to carry supernatural authority, not to control the world, but to remain unmoved by it, to walk in peace when others tremble, to command without shouting, to bless without needing acknowledgement. You've become a vessel. Heaven can trust light in motion, authority wrapped in gentleness, victory wearing humility. That's the quiet power of a chosen one who finally knows who they are. There is something holy about restoration. It is not merely the return of what was lost. It is the redemption of what was meant to be. When heaven restores, it does not give back the same. It gives back multiplied, matured, and meaningful. You are standing in that kind of season now. Restoration is not instant. It begins quietly, like dawn before daylight. You start to notice subtle shifts, peace returning where there was once pressure, hope whispering where there was once heaviness. What was taken from you begins to reappear in new form, purer and stronger than before. The ancient promise recorded in the book of Joel, chapter 2, verse 25 still speaks. I will restore to you the years that the locust has eaten. Those words are more than comfort. They are confirmation. God keeps records of your losses, not to remind you of pain, but to ensure repayment with purpose. Nothing that broke you will remain wasted. The years you thought were gone have been working underground, preparing fruit for this moment. You see, restoration doesn't just rebuild the broken parts, it rewrites the meaning of the entire journey. You are not the same person who lost those things. You are wiser now, softer yet stronger. When what is restored comes, it meets a heart that can finally handle it. Think of gold refined in fire. It melts. It separates. It seems destroyed, yet the flame was never the enemy. It was the purifier. When it cools, it shines brighter, worth more than before. That's what your restoration looks like. The fire you cursed has become your certification. There was once a man named Eliam who lost everything in one night: his work, his home, his sense of identity. For months, he sat in silence, numb, unable to pray. But one morning, as he watched sunlight touch the ruins of his home, something stirred in him. Not sorrow, clarity. He realized he hadn't been emptied for punishment, but for rebuilding. Within a year, what returned to him wasn't what he lost, it was what he was always meant to carry. His loss had been the excavation for something eternal. That's what's happening for you. Heaven didn't forget the details. Every unanswered prayer was stored, every tear catalogued, every effort remembered. And now, as the season shifts, the hand of restoration begins to move quietly, but unmistakably. Restoration often starts internally before it appears externally. You'll feel peace return first, then dignity, then purpose. These are signs of renewal happening in the unseen. Once your spirit is aligned, circumstances follow like a tide obeying the moon. It's not only relationships or opportunities that will be restored, it's the confidence that pain once stole. You'll look in the mirror and recognize the strength in your own eyes again. You'll walk into familiar places and feel no ache, only gratitude. What the enemy used to wound you, God now uses to distinguish you. What was meant to bury you became the soil for resurrection. You are walking evidence that divine restoration is not repair, it's recreation. It's heaven making all things new, not merely patched. Sometimes, restoration requires letting go of the picture you had before it broke. Because God doesn't rebuild replicas, He crafts revelations. You might not receive the exact thing you lost, but what comes will carry the same promise, dressed in greater grace. Restoration also brings reversal. The same mouths that once doubted you will speak blessing. The same spaces that once rejected you will request your presence. You won't need to prove anything. Your peace will preach for you. And when restoration completes its work, you will notice something profound. The pain will no longer echo. The memories that once stung will now sing. Gratitude will rise where grief once ruled. That is the beauty of restoration. It doesn't erase the past, it redeems it. It turns loss into legacy, wounds into wisdom, and endings into new beginnings. Every scar you carry will find its counterpart in grace. Every valley you walked will bloom with purpose. The story that once hurt to tell will become healing for someone else. That's how heaven restores generously, purposefully, perfectly. So walk forward with open hands. Don't chase what left. Make room for what's returning. You're not stepping into the same life. You're stepping into the version heaven intended all along. Restoration has made you whole, not by giving back what was lost, but by awakening who you've become. You are no longer broken. You are beautifully rebuilt. Now, walk gently in this fullness. Let every breath remind you that grace always finishes what pain once began. Redemption in motion, perfected through time. You carry now the mantle of the overcomer. It doesn't rest on your shoulders by chance. It was placed there by purpose. You have walked through valleys that stripped away illusion and climbed mountains that demanded faith. Every breath you take now carries the scent of victory, not loud, not boastful, but steady and sacred. The mantle you wear was not woven in comfort. It was stitched through pain, prayer, and persistence. Each thread tells a story. The night you chose faith over fear. The day you forgave when bitterness was easier. The moment you stood again when everything told you not to. That's what makes this mantle radiant. It glows from within, lit by resilience. As heaven recorded through the hand of the prophet in Isaiah, chapter 61, verse 3, to bestow on them a crown of beauty instead of ashes, the oil of joy instead of mourning, and a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. That is what your mantle is: beauty from ashes, joy from sorrow, strength from surrender. The garment of praise that now rests upon you doesn't erase the past, it transforms it into testimony. You wear grace the way morning wears light. And yet, this mantle isn't just for you, it's a covering for others, a signpost for those still wandering through their storms. When they see your calm, they will find courage. When they hear your voice, they will remember that survival is sacred. You have become what you once needed, a living reminder that endurance leads to elevation. But mantles, like fires, remain alive only when tended. Their glow deepens through gratitude, through shared light, through the gentle act of giving back what once healed you. If this message has touched your spirit, let your heart choose how to respond. Maybe you press like, a small spark that leaps from your heart to keep this fire glowing. Maybe you share as though passing a lantern into another traveler's cold hands, whispering, "Carry this warmth forward." Maybe you subscribe, like setting another candle in the window, saying, "Let this light keep guiding me home." And if your soul feels led, you can donate, not out of duty. But désir. Think of it as pouring a few drops of oil into a sacred lamp so the flame can keep burning for others still lost in night. No one demands it. It is simply a beautiful choice, generosity flowing as worship. Comment, "I choose my crown." Let those words breathe meaning, a gentle declaration that you are stepping fully into your calling, not arrogantly, but gratefully owning the grace you've grown into. You are the bridge between pain and power now. What once crushed you has become your commission, and when you walk into rooms, you carry the quiet authority of someone who has seen the storm and still sings in its aftermath. Your mantle shines brightest when used to shelter others. Cover those who tremble. Speak peace over those still shaking. Share your story not to boast, but to build, Every time you lift someone, heaven sees the reflection of its own kindness in you. This is how legacies are formed, not in noise, but in nurture, not in demand, but in devotion. The light you tend here will outlast applause, because it was never born of performance, it was born of purpose. So wear your crown humbly, walk with reverence, and if this message has stirred something sacred in you, let your gratitude move gently through a share, a word, or a seed. No pressure, no persuasion, only the poetry of willing hearts, keeping the light alive, because light that is shared freely never fades. It multiplies one soul at a time, one act at a time, until darkness has nowhere left to hide. Every act of generosity, however small, ripples far beyond what the eye can measure. A single ember shared in love can ignite entire constellations of hope across unseen hearts. And when you give light, you never lose it. It returns to you in ways no coin could ever count: in peace, in clarity, in the quiet knowing that you mattered. Let the act itself be worship, the gentle release of something finite into something eternal. That's how heaven measures wealth, not by what we keep, but by what we kindle. So keep tending this flame with every kindness, every prayer, every offering of time or word or heart. The fire grows not for recognition, but for redemption. And as that flame rises, it carries your name with it, not as a monument, but as melody, a song of light that whispers. They gave, and love kept burning. Before the fullness of destiny unfolds, there is always a final refining the quiet, invisible test of humility. It does not come with warning or fanfare. It arrives gently, like a whisper, asking one question: can you stay low when lifted high? Humility is heaven's measurement of maturity. It is not thinking less of yourself, it is thinking of yourself less. It's learning to carry greatness without letting it carry you away. Every chosen one faces this crossroad before elevation, the moment when recognition comes. And your response determines whether the anointing continues to flow or dries in pride. You've come far. You've endured the breaking, the silence, the isolation, the storm. Now you stand at the threshold of promotion. But promotion in heaven's order is not simply about what you do, it's about how you hold what you've been given. The timeless truth resounds in the book of Proverbs, chapter 22, verse 4. Humility is the fear of the Lord. Its wages are riches, and honor, and life. That is heaven's equation: reverence before reward, humility before honor. The world tells you to build higher, heaven teaches you to bow lower. That's how divine balance is kept. When you walk with authority, it's easy to forget that the same hand that lifted you can also steady you or slow you for protection. Humility keeps you teachable when you have reason to boast. It's the unseen weight that keeps your crown from tilting. There was once a man named Elias who gained sudden influence after years of obscurity. People honored him, sought his words, called him a leader. For a time, he felt invincible until he began to sense the quiet fading of peace. He asked God why the fire he once carried now flickered, and the answer came softly: you stopped bowing while you stood. That night, he knelt again, not out of fear, but gratitude. From that moment, the flame returned, brighter than before. That is humility's mystery. The lower you bow, the higher heaven can lift you safely. The moment you start seeing yourself as the source, grace begins to withdraw. But when you see yourself as the vessel, grace flows endlessly. Humility doesn't diminish your light, it purifies it. It makes your words trustworthy, your influence sustainable. It turns success into stewardship, fame into fruitfulness. Without it, power becomes poison. With it, power becomes purpose. And humility often hides in the simplest choices, in how you respond to correction, how you treat those who can't repay you, how you carry yourself when applause fades. It's choosing to serve when you could be celebrated, to listen when you could command. This is the final test, not to see if you can lead, but to see if you can kneel. Because in the kingdom, every throne begins at an altar. Humility also teaches gratitude. It helps you remember that everything you have is borrowed breath, every victory shared grace. The moment pride begins to whisper, humility answers, I know where I was found. That memory becomes armor against arrogance. It's not that heaven dislikes greatness. Heaven loves greatness that still remembers its source. The higher God takes you, the softer your heart must become. Even now, as your influence grows and your words reach further, humility must become your anchor. It reminds you that miracles aren't proof of your power, they're proof of His mercy. You're a carrier, not a creator. Let others chase position. You chase presence. Let them gather crowns. You guard character. Because humility doesn't need a platform, it becomes one. Through it, heaven finds a steady surface to display its glory. When you walk with humble strength, people may not always understand it. They might mistake gentleness for weakness, silence for timidity. But heaven sees differently. The strongest hearts are the ones that can kneel. So keep your posture low, your gratitude high, your spirit teachable. This is how you pass the final test before full elevation, by remembering that everything that flows through you belongs to the one above you. When humility becomes habit, promotion becomes protection. You rise safely because you never forget who lifted you. The journey that began with breaking now ends in balance, greatness clothed in grace, power wrapped in peace. You've learned that real honor doesn't come from being seen, it comes from serving unseen. And that's how heaven decides who's ready for the next level, not by how loudly they command, but by how deeply they bow. Humility keeps the crown from crushing you. It teaches your hands to lift others while holding your own blessings lightly. In that balance, greatness breathes safely, and grace continues to multiply without measure. You have reached the place where destiny no longer feels distant. It lives in your rhythm, your words, your quiet decisions. You have become the embodiment of what heaven intended, not a seeker of power, but a steward of it. The reign of the chosen one begins not with a shout, but with stillness. You are not stepping onto a throne, you are walking into alignment. The sacred word declares in the book of Revelation, chapter 3, verse 21, to the one who is victorious, I will give the right to sit with me on my throne, just as I was victorious and sat down with my Father on his throne. And victory, in heaven's language, is not about conquest, it's about communion. To reign with God means to rule from a place of unity, where authority and intimacy become one. That is your current state. A ruler who reigns through peace, a warrior who conquers through compassion, You've learned that true dominion begins within. Before kingdoms bow, thoughts must. Before nations shift, the heart must settle. You've won the most sacred battle, the one between fear and faith, self and spirit, pride and purpose. Now, your reign unfolds not as an empire, but as influence. Wherever you go, peace follows. Wherever you speak, clarity blooms. You are not here to control, you are here to cultivate. The world doesn't need louder rulers, it needs gentler ones. And you are that gentleness dressed in strength. Every scar on your journey has become a seal, a signature of survival and transformation. The world may never know the cost of your calm, but heaven does. Each trial trained your hands for tenderness, your voice for vision. You rule not by force, but by faithfulness. I once heard a story about a king who walked among his people disguised as a traveler. When asked why, he said, "A throne means nothing if I forget how to kneel among those I lead." That wisdom echoes in you. You carry a royal spirit with a servant's heart. That combination makes you unstoppable. The reign of the chosen one isn't measured in wealth, followers, or applause. It's measured in how many hearts find healing under your influence. You are a walking sanctuary, people. Feel safe near your presence because heaven lives quietly within you. You have become fluent in the language of balance. You can hold both strength and softness, both courage and compassion, both justice and mercy. That is the mark of divine royalty, the ability to mirror heaven's heart in human form. Now, as you move forward, life will continue to unfold differently. Your words will carry weight, not because of eloquence, but because of essence. You've been entrusted with authority that doesn't command, it invites. People won't follow you because they fear you. They'll follow because they feel peace when you lead. Your journey was never about arrival. It was about awakening. Every valley, every victory, every silence shaped you for this to reign with grace. You understand now that leadership is not elevation, but embodiment. It is not the power to rule over others, but the capacity to reflect heaven wherever you stand. You walk through the world like sunrise, gentle, certain, impossible to ignore. You no longer ask for light, you are light. Darkness flees because it recognizes its opposite. The atmosphere around you bends toward harmony because heaven's frequency moves through you. And yet, even now, your spirit remains humble. You know the crown doesn't make you greater, it makes you responsible. Every gift you've been given is a tool to serve. Every victory is an opportunity to lift others higher. That's how divine reign sustains itself, through service, not supremacy. You are not just chosen, you are consistent. Not just anointed, you are aware. You rule not because of position, but because of presence. That is the reign of the chosen one, not a kingdom of walls, but a kingdom of warmth. Stretching wherever love is carried, your reign will not end with you. The legacy of your obedience will outlive your name. It will echo in the lives you've touched, in the hearts you've healed, in the faith you've awakened. That is the true throne, one built in spirit, not stone. So stand in this knowing, your journey was never random. Every battle built your backbone. Every delay deepened your discernment. Every silence strengthened your sight. You are not rising, you have risen. The reign of the chosen one begins now, quiet, certain, eternal. And as you walk forward, The heavens watch in stillness, not to test you, but to celebrate you. For the rain of grace has found its vessel in you. You've reached the end of this journey, but something in you knows it's really a beginning. Every word you've heard has been a mirror, reminding you of what heaven already whispered inside. You were never ordinary. You were chosen. You've walked through every stage, the breaking, the awakening, the refining, the rising, and now you stand crowned, not with pride, but with peace. This message wasn't just to inspire, it was to remember you back to yourself, the path that always knew you were meant to shine. And now, as this light continues to move through you, I want to invite you gently, freely, beautifully to keep the flame alive. If this message has spoken to your soul, let your heart respond in its own language. Maybe you press like, a quiet way of saying, I felt that. And maybe you share passing this light to someone still wandering in the dark, letting them know they're not alone. Maybe you subscribe, choosing to keep walking together, step by step, in this river of revelation. And if your spirit ever feels stirred to donate, do it softly, joyfully, without pressure, as if you're pouring a little oil into a lamp that has warmed your own hands. Your generosity isn't about giving something away, it's about letting the light reach further, illuminating hearts that haven't yet found home. Leave a comment below, even a few words, a number, an emoji of agreement. It's your way of saying, I'm part of this. Each comment, each share, each gift becomes a ripple of connection, proof that we are not standing alone, but rising together. So, until the next moment of light, keep walking in your calling, keep tending your inner fire, and keep shining where the world has dimmed. The story doesn't end here. It lives wherever your light travels next.